Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Sarah, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to surface crochet, or more specifically how to crochet the fluff onto the back of my patterns. Now you can actually apply this to my other dragon patterns as well, the ones with the actual spikes on the back. It is made in the same way, just with the different stitches. For today's pattern I'm using this fluffy yarn from Yarn Bee. It's For the Moment in cream, but you could use basically any fuzzy yarn you want. For the rest of the material list you're going to need your crochet hook. Whatever you use for the body should work, but I'm using a 5mm. I have a sewing needle to weave in my ends, scissors, and then stitch markers. Stitch markers are optional, but I do recommend them, especially if this is your first time doing something like this. It can help you from having to tear out and keep your stitches even. With all that said, let's just jump right into it and let's start surface crocheting. I zoomed in the camera a little bit so you guys can see things a little better, but I flipped my dragon upside down. So this is Willow the Wood Dragon in the Snuggler version, and I picked this pattern because it shows how to do it on half double crochets and single crochets. So since the body is unstuffed, you need to pop it out and pop about the center out just like this, kind of like fold it in on itself. That way it's easier to crochet the details on. But then normally I would just start from the tail and start single crocheting all the way up. As a tip for you guys, so you don't have to tear out and try and keep things even all on your own, using some stitch markers or some yarn scraps, whatever you have on hand, and marking the center stitches is actually better because, like I said, you won't have to tear out your work if it's uneven. You'll just have to follow the stitch markers and you should be fairly even. So just go ahead and follow up the spine, skipping a few stitches, and add your stitch markers in, and this will be your guide. And when you finish putting all these stitch markers in, double check that everything's even before moving on to the next step. And the head is definitely the hardest part, but it is much easier to do it now than when you're actively crocheting. Here are all my stitch markers. I'd ideally have one more. Let me see if I have another one. Just like that, and then pick it up and look at it, especially if it's a big project. Pick it up and look at it and make sure it's even. I think mine is pretty much there. I like to, if you have your legs on, see if it's pretty even in the middle here, and then also here between the arms. And it looks pretty even to me, so I think we're pretty much set. It doesn't need to be perfect either, so no worries either way. Now what I like to do is create a slip knot onto our hook with our yarn, whether that's fuzzy yarn or some regular yarn, and we're going to start at the tail. I'm going to remove this first stitch marker and just join my yarn with a single crochet. Now if you're using a chenille yarn, you might want to make some shells or something a little bit fancier than just a single crochet border around, but either way I think it'll look nice. Now the pattern itself calls for 2 single crochets in each half double crochet stitch, and a half double crochet, you can break it down. You have this bottom part here and then this top part here, so you can put 2 single crochets in each half double crochet, but sometimes I find it can actually be too big and the fluff will start to kind of wibble down, which can be a cool effect if that's what you want to go for, but just be aware that not every time it's going to be perfectly straight. I honestly think it looks better when it's like that, so that's what I'll be doing today, 2 single crochets in each half double crochet, but sometimes I'll do 2 single crochets and then 3 regular stitches and just do that all the way down, and that seems to balance things out a little, makes it a lot more straighter. Just place your 2 single crochets or however you want to do it all the way up until you hit your next stitch marker, and at this point you should be making sure it's nice and even with the stitch marker. Are you coming up on it in a proper way? You're not 2 stitches off or anything, because if you are, you're going to need to pull it out a little and realign it. Like I said, with this fuzzy yarn you can really pull it out quite a few times, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. When we're finished we will be brushing out this fluff with just a regular brush, so don't worry about how it looks right now because we're going to fix that later. So I'm just gonna follow this 2 single crochets and half double crochet all the way up until I get to the base of the neck, and then I'll show you what I do for regular single crochets. What you do is you crochet along the side of the dragon. So as you can see, I picked a side. So this is the right side, and then this would be the wrong side. With fuzzy yarn, you can't tell the difference, but with other yarn you can. So you just need to pick which side you want to work through. And since we started at the tail, this is the only side you can work from technically. You have to work from the head to work the other way down. Here I have arrived at the base of the neck for this willow. So right now I'm actually going to pull up a loop and check and make sure that we're pretty much even. With this particular pattern, I do have to sew wings on about here, so this has to be pretty even, otherwise it affects the wings. I mean, it's a tiny bit off, but I think it's fine, honestly. Most people aren't even going to notice, so don't worry too much about it being uneven. So go ahead and continue crocheting, and what we're actually going to do is we're just going to start working in our single crochet stitches. Now for the single crochets, we're just going to be placing 1 single crochet in there, no increases at all throughout this whole thing. And for the head, I like to double up the stripe on the top, so what I'll do is I'll actually come across and then I'll turn and I'll come back down again. That way it's double wide on the head. So I like to stick a little bit to one side. That way I have enough room to come back down with that second stripe, I guess you could say. And here I am at the top of the forehead. I'm just going to quickly assess whether I want to turn here or do another stitch. I think here is far enough. So I'm going to do is literally just turn it around and start working the other way. Nothing extra here that needs to be done. And I'm going to work as close as I can to the previous, that way you can't really see the body color through the fluff. So that's the goal at least. And there we are at the base of the neck again. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is, normally I just slip stitch into the previous fluff. That way I make sure this ends nicely. Just like that, chain one and fasten it off. Leave a length long enough to weave in. And then just go ahead and pull it right through. And there you have the fluff attached. I need to go find my brush and I'll show you guys how I brush this out and also how to weave in the ends. The first thing we're going to do is weave in the ends. It's pretty straightforward. The ends are pretty much already secured, so you can just weave them right in. Now for the final step, and this only applies if you're actually using fluffy yarn. If you are not, then you don't need to brush it out. But I'm using this brush today. You can use a brush with just cloth and instead of metal, that way it doesn't tear up your chenille yarn. But I'll just be real delicate and brush the top, push everything down. As you can see, I'm barely applying pressure and I'm not brushing very hard. That's usually all this yarn needs. Here you can see the difference between unbrushed and brushed. As you can see, the brushed just looks a lot cleaner. So, highly recommend doing that. Here is the fluff totally finished, and as you can see on the Snuggle Dragon, the back starts to curl a little. I think this is perfect for a snuggle pattern. There isn't any stuffing in the body, so I think it looks really nice. Like I said earlier, feel free to adjust the increase amount, that way it doesn't curl as much. But yeah, that is the fluff added. It's nice and secure, and you can use this technique of surface crocheting through the plushie this direction with any yarn type, any style, anything you want to do. So hopefully that helps. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll try my best to answer them quickly. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please leave a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I appreciate each and every one of you and your support throughout all of last year and then this year too. You guys are absolutely amazing, and I will see you in my next video. I'm not sure what it's going to be about yet, but it'll be about something good, hopefully. So I'll see you then. Bye!